Hello, everybody. Today we're going to take a look at some historical presidential rankings. We'll start here with a focus on Joe Biden, and then at the end, we'll look at all the presidents collectively. Now, this is not the same as his job approval or favorability ratings. We'll take a look at that in a different video once he's out of office. Let's start here on Gallup, and this came out about a week ago, and now that we're close to the end of Biden, it's only natural to wonder how he's going to fit in historically. Well, the headline is Americans think history will rate Biden presidency negatively, and perceptions of how Trump's first term will be regarded have improved considerably. So usually you might have to be well into a president's term, or they might even have to be out of office before you can really gauge how they did. And given how Biden and Trump are the two most recent presidents, they're absolutely fresh in everybody's mind still. So I'm going to go down here a little bit, and we're going to focus on the tables. So we've got recent presidents here going back to Kennedy, and they ask, how do you think each of the following presidents will go down in history? They've got 5 different ratings here: outstanding, above average, average, below average, and poor. So this is just U.S. adults, and way at the top here is Kennedy. He's at a net 68% positive. Just 1% say he's poor or below average. Those are truly remarkable numbers there for JFK. You'd think you'd always get at least 2 to 3% that just hate anybody, no matter who it is. But not Kennedy. He is absolutely dominating everybody else. Now, he also served least recently on here, so there's a lot of people that really did not live through that presidency that probably answered this poll. But even with that said, he's looking fantastic. Now, second, we've got Ronald Reagan. He's very positive, but way under Kennedy. He's at a net 38% positive. Him and Kennedy both have 22% that say outstanding, but Reagan is at 32 for above average compared to 48 for Kennedy, and Reagan has 7 and 9% that are below average or poor. Then after that, we're looking at Barack Obama at a net 21% positive. Then it's going to be George H.W. Bush at 7. Jimmy Carter is at 6. Bill Clinton is at 5. Then we head into the negatives. We've got Donald Trump first term just underwater at -4. But as expected with that Trump term, there's a lot of polarization on here. He's got 17% outstanding, 23 above average, 16 average, 13 below average, and 31% poor. So there's a lot of people that hate him, but a lot of people that have a different opinion. But Trump is not the lowest on here. We've got George W. Bush at 9 points underwater. Then we've got a big gap, and we've come to Joe Biden. He's at 35 points underwater. And Biden, compared to Trump, does not have that range of polarization. He only has 6% outstanding, 13% above average, 26 average, 17 below, and 37% poor. That's the highest of everybody, including Trump. At the very bottom, we're looking at Richard Nixon. He's just a little bit under Biden at -42. So the two most recent presidents not looking good on here, but Biden looks like his support is much weaker than Trump's. That's similar to what we saw in the polling leading up to him dropping out in the last election. The amount of people strongly supporting him was just not there. His support was much softer. So with Biden, we might want to break it down by political party. Of course, Democrats are going to like him more, Republicans are going to hate him. But let's see what the exact numbers are. Well, it's similar to what I just said about the polling in the election. Only 12% of Democrats rate him outstanding, 32% above average, 38% average, 8% below average, and 8% say poor. So that is tepid support from what I would expect to be his biggest fans. Now, if we look at independents, it's only 6% outstanding, 9 above average, 34 average, 21 below, and 30% say poor. And how about Republicans? Well, nobody said outstanding, and it looks like above average doesn't even register on here. It's at maybe 1%. 4% say average, 17 below average, and 76% say poor. Now, everybody's going to have their own reasons as to why they like or don't like a particular president. But if you go back to George W. Bush, that wasn't that long ago, and Democrats completely hated that guy. It was hard to imagine anybody worse than Bush. Then when Obama was in office, Republicans totally hated him as well, and it was hard to imagine anybody worse than Obama. Then Trump comes in, and all of a sudden Bush goes on the back burner. Democrats think this is the guy we actually hate. And then the same thing happened with Biden and Republicans. Obama all of a sudden didn't quite look as bad as Biden. So it seems like whoever's most recently in office is who the opposite party hates the most. Now, if we go down to the next table, this will first show us how each party rates the Democratic presidents. So we've got Biden, Obama, Clinton, Carter, and Kennedy on here. And even amongst Democrats, Biden is by far the lowest. He's only at a 28% net positive. Second lowest is Clinton at 43, but the highest is Obama at 82. So again, amongst his own party, Biden looking lukewarm at best. Independents also by far rate Biden the lowest. He's the only president underwater at -36. Kennedy's the best there at 65. And with Republicans, this goes to show what I was just talking about. Obama is at minus 48. That's terrible. But look at Joe Biden. He's almost double that. He's at negative 92. That's almost a unanimous hatred. But now we can do the same thing for the Republican presidents. So we've got Trump, both Bushes, Reagan, and Nixon. And with Democrats, Trump is at negative 79. That's terrible, but not as bad as how much Republicans hate Biden. And George W. Bush is at minus 29. That's pretty bad, but compared to Trump, it looks like Obama compared to Biden for the Republicans. There's just a huge gap there, and the hatred has increased for whoever's been more recent. Independents rate Trump at a minus 18. Republicans have Trump at a positive 84. That's way, way above Democrats' positive rating of Biden at 28. Now, all three of these rate Nixon underwater, including Republicans at minus 20. Now, when every president is in office, they're going to defend their own administration and legacy, and they usually say they want to give it some time so history can accurately reflect what they've done. So Trump is coming back into office. But what about his first term? Well, we know during the election, especially pre-COVID, the economy was looked at way more fondly than under Biden. So this next table rates Trump's first term from 2017 to 21. But they first asked this in 21, then they're going to compare those numbers to 24. So all adults in 21, 9% said his term was outstanding, 20% said above average, 10 said average, 14 below average, and 47% poor. Now, more recently, how do they feel about it? Well, 17% say it's outstanding. That's up 8 points. 23% say above average, 16% say average, 13 below average, and 31 say poor. So I'll say that is a fairly dramatic improvement. The low ratings are down and the positive ratings are up. Then they break it down by political party, and even with Democrats, his poor rating went from 74 down to 66. That's not exactly a ton, but it is headed in one direction. With independents, his rating is improved as well, and also with Republicans. It went from 23% outstanding to 42. So that is notable how much it's shifted in just a few years. And you could compare that kind of similar movement to past presidents before Trump. Sometimes those perceptions do change 5, 10, 15 years after they leave office. But Trump's net positive when he left office was minus 32. Now it's at only minus 4. Trump's not the only one to have a dramatic improvement on here. George W. Bush went from minus 42 to minus 9. And Jimmy Carter went from minus 32, that was the same as Trump, to a positive 6. George H.W. Bush and Clinton actually went in the opposite direction. Their ratings are less positive now. So these are just the Gallup surveys. But as I said, the further back you go, it's going to be harder for many adults to gauge how a president did when they were in office. If you didn't live through that time, you'd pretty much have to do a lot of research. So that brings us to the historical presidential rankings, and for that we get on Wikipedia. Now for this, it's going to be every president back to Washington, and it's not going to be registered voters or adults. It says they're usually based on surveys of academic historians and political scientists or popular opinion. So in many cases, there's a pretty big divide between an average voter and these academic scholars. So if we go down to the table of every president, at the top they have the survey, the year, and the source. Then they have every president ranked with a number according to when that survey was conducted. So a lower number is going to be better. And then they also have shading on here. Blue is going to be the best, then green, then yellow-green, yellow, and then orange is going to be the worst. So the oldest survey on here goes back to 1948. But as we scroll down here, we can see some familiar presidents are extremely high ranked. It's going to be Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, the Roosevelts, etc. There are some presidents' rankings that have slid over the decades. But as we get toward the bottom, we can see the presidents we're going to be more familiar with. Now, it might not be fair to rank a president, at least until they're almost out of office, if not completely out of office already. But the lowest number you can get on here is going to be 45. And you can see George W. Bush's ratings are pretty low. Obama's are not bad at all. But then Trump is way down here at the bottom. Most recent survey here has him at the lowest ranked president. But even before that, he was just under that ranking. And Joe Biden here, in the two surveys he was included, he's at 19 and 14 in the most recent. So that is decisively above average, according to the historians and the scholars. And that's the kind of ranking that would not line up at all compared to what we just took a look at on Gallup. There's a big gap between the academic elites and common voters. If you just looked at this and tried to match it up to favorability ratings, it would look like everybody hates Trump and Biden is looking pretty good. But we just saw that's not at all the case. At the beginning of Biden's presidency, he was a little bit popular, but about 7 or 8 months in, that totally dropped off. And we'll take a look at that again in a future video, but ever since then, it's been underwater. And now it actually looks like Biden is more unpopular than Trump, at least according to the voters. But we'll see if that changes once Trump gets back into office. Now we could wind this down with the Siena College poll from 2022. This ranks all the presidents on specific attributes, abilities, and accomplishments. You could read all the abbreviations here. And there is some great great stuff here, especially if you want to look back at the older presidents. But if you want to go all the way to the bottom to see the ones we're going to be familiar with, they did include Joe Biden on here, even though this was only halfway through his term. But again, most of his numbers here are not bad at all. He actually has none that are in the red. It again looks like he's doing a decent job. And above him, if we look at Trump, again, all these numbers are horribly in the red. The only three that are going to be positive are this L, that stands for luck. Next to that, we've got WR, that is willing to take risks. And finally, party leadership. Those are the only three qualities that Trump is not on the bottom on. So there's a lot of fascinating stuff here in some of this data, but it all underscores a clear divide. There's political polarization, but there's also a gulf between the electorate and the educated elite. I'm sure everybody wants to blame anybody else, but I don't see how that gap is going to be bridged anytime soon. The academics will say they've studied this, they know what's really going on. And the voters that have the opposite opinion of those academics, they're going to say they have no idea what it's like to be out here on the ground floor. So I think everybody's in some kind of a bubble. I don't know where it's going to lead, but if you're looking to gauge how Biden, Trump, and the rest of the presidents are doing historically, hopefully you have a little bit better idea. So let me know in the comments, how do you think Biden is going to go down historically? It looks pretty bad now. Do you think it's going to recover over time, or do you think it's going to sink even lower? And what do you think about the significant change about how voters feel about that first Trump term? How's that going to change heading into term number 2? And what about these historical rankings from political scholars? Do they know what they're talking about, or they're totally missing something? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.